Hey everybody, this is Virgil. I just wanted to put this video together mainly to talk about being an action taker. And I gotta say, that's probably one of the things that I've developed through time. I know as a child, probably the number one thing that helped me with that was swimming lessons. I was learning how to swim, and you're afraid of the water, especially whenever you're in the water and you take that big gulp in, or it comes, you just inhale it, you start coughing like crazy, and you're just like relieved to have that breath of air hit your lungs, and you start to appreciate the air in your lungs, and you think to yourself, I'm never going to do that again. So I think the fear factor is probably the biggest one for people that don't take action. And I wanted to see if I could help anybody out there that really is struggling with this. So I know that in swimming lessons, we take certain steps. Like, for example, we stay in the water, we're comfortable around it. We, try to get to understand that it's not a dangerous environment. And eventually, you have to hold your nose and just dunk your head underwater just real quick. And, just to get kind of rid of that anxiety of what if this happens, right? And after doing that for a while, then you actually hold your breath and then go underwater, go for like 3 seconds, and then they bring you back up, and then it goes back into, and then you go all the way to the floor of the pool and then jump back up. It might only be 5 feet, if you're only like 2'5" or whatever, you know what I mean? It's different, but those are some of the exercises that they do. I guess they call that incrementalism, right? So you're taking steps to get to a certain point. Same thing with a frog in the water. You don't throw it in while it's hot because they impulsively jump out. But if you throw them in while it's cold and you warm it up, they feel comfortable. They're cooking, but to them it just feels warm and nice until eventually they don't realize it, but it's too hot. And there's nothing they can do about it at that point. So it's the same thing, except in this case, it's not killing you. It's actually giving you confidence, right? And even after that, there was other things that I had to overcome. Like, for example, I got to say that having a social circle really helped out, because in El Paso, Texas, in the desert, when the skateboards first came out, we started to, everybody had one, and we were playing outside. We had sidewalks in front of our houses, and it was easy. After a while we got good at it. We weren't really doing any tricks or anything like that. We were small, like 6, 7, 8. But one of the challenges we would do is we would, nobody had grass over there. It's the desert. There's no grass. There's tumbleweeds. But everybody had what they call xeriscaping, the rocks, right? And so one of my friends grabbed the rocks and he threw it on the sidewalk, and he said, okay, let's see who can go through those rocks without falling off. And it was a good challenge. We're like, oh, that's a great idea. So you go down there, and they're tiny, they're like that big, but whenever you're on a skateboard and that skateboard the wheel hits those rocks, it stops you in your tracks. That's what you hear, and you'll just go flying off, tumbling on the floor, sometimes on those rocks. But we always hurt ourselves, had bruises, had scrapes and things like that. But it was good for building confidence, because we knew what was at the end of that situation. We knew how to deal with it, how to embrace ourselves, how to handle it, right? It was part of the experience. But the reason why I brought up the social circle is because it's part of that pressure, saying, well, I can do it better, or let's see how you can do it. And I remember I did have friends, because not all of us are like that, but we did have friends in the neighborhood that were more not so willing, a little more fearful, especially seeing us fall. They're like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that. But eventually they saw what we were doing, and they're like, well, when in Rome, right? As the saying goes. So they would jump on the skateboard and try to go through there. And even before they hit the rocks, they would jump off. It was kind of funny, but eventually they got used to it. And we just had a lot of fun. And I would say that was one of the ways that helped us build confidence to just do it, just take action, right? Kind of like bungee, people that do bungee jumps or skydiving, which I've never done. I think that's something that I would definitely look forward to doing sometime in the near future. But there was something just as exhilarating that I did as a teenager, and I'm not proud of it, just to forewarn you. But my friends and I, as teenagers, 15, 16, 17, we like to go to the liquor stores for fun and just go and grab a package of beer and run out the store. And it was very exhilarating. But I remember that the worst moment was right before you're about to do it, because you know you're going to do it and you get nervous. But just doing it, just taking action. Like, one of the things that I would do is I would say, you know what, I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to do it. And so those are some of the things that I realized that have helped me out in life, because, I don't procrastinate too much. I just say, okay, I'm just going to do it. Let's just jump in, see what happens. And I know for a lot of people it's difficult, because most of us want to see some kind of reward at the end of the tunnel. But in some cases it's a lot of hard work, right? And you have to go through that experience, and it's not always going to be fruitful. But through that experience, you actually learn how to fail, and hopefully, you can get back up from that and do better. Like, for example, when we were stealing the alcohol, grab a 30-pack and then run out the door, and it was funny because the cashier would be like, "Hey," and before they knew it, we were gone. There was a running car outside, and we'd take off, no license plate or anything. Very difficult to catch, right? But I did have a couple of friends that were stupid enough. I guess we were all stupid for doing it, but dumb enough to get themselves caught. Like, they didn't, I don't know, execute it correctly. Which I think planning has a lot to do with taking action. You have to have a good plan ahead of yourself. Like, even if it's spur of the moment, you have to think, what can I do to make sure that this is a good decision and a right decision for me? How could I take action and make sure that I get all the results that I can possible without failing? So I think that's very important also. But without that experience, without that willingness to just jump in and have that leap of faith, you can't do that if you can do that without knowing the reward at the end of the tunnel, I think that makes you a lot more effective. Because, even though if you think to yourself, well, I'm going to go for the reward at the end of the tunnel, but even if I don't get there, I have the experience because I've been through it. So I know that even if I don't reach it, I know how to get there, or I know what I did wrong and what made me fail. And for some people, that's a problem, because they think about it, they're like, well, I don't want to fail. Well, you don't learn, you don't progress unless you actually make mistakes. So it's good. The more mistakes you make, hopefully not getting caught, like stealing beer. I'm not trying to promote that here. I'm just saying, with the experience, you start to learn, you start to gain experience, you get more comfortable with it. You get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think that's very important, especially if you're a businessman, an entrepreneur, in any case in life, right? I mean, in some cases, it's not okay to take action because your actions could actually be detrimental, to your life, to your family, to whatever. So definitely, that's why I say having a plan is very important. And even if you don't see the reward at the end of the tunnel, it's best to take it as a moment of experience and learn from it and implement it in life and just grow from that. So I hope that helps out anybody here. If you can, comment below of situations you had where you realize what helped you to become an action taker, and also what kind of situations you took that you were absolutely glad at the end of the tunnel that you saw, wow, this was worth the rewards and it was worth the struggles. That's very important, right? So when we struggle and then we get the reward, it's just more satisfying. It's like, you take a drink of water and it tastes bland, you don't really appreciate it. But then when you're in, like, say, for example, you're here in the desert and you're walking through the desert and you don't eat for 3 days, but then you finally get to that fresh water, even if it's like dirty, you drink it and you get that sensation of fulfillment of just a wonderful feeling of satisfaction. It's way different than having that drink of water every day. But that's what we need to achieve, is that when we go through the struggles, the reward is just more satisfaction. It's more satisfactory. So I hope this helps, and let me know what you think of the video in the comments below. Thanks.